What if the man who made the world laugh for decades was hiding pain, struggles, and secrets that only his family knew and that they've finally decided to reveal? Don Rickles, the merchant of venom, built an empire of comedy through insults, quick wit, and a razor-sharp tongue that spared no one. But behind the jokes and the applause was a life filled with challenges, heartbreak, and complexities that his family has only now begun to share. Their revelations paint a picture that's far more complicated and far less pretty than the world ever imagined. For millions, Don Rickles was a symbol of old-school comedy at its finest. Born in Queens in 1926, he wasn't an overnight success. He struggled for years as a young comedian, often ignored in smoky nightclubs and rejected by talent scouts. But he eventually found his calling through a style no one else dared to master: the insult. Rickles could walk on stage, pick apart an audience member, a fellow celebrity, or even a U.S. president, and leave the room roaring with laughter. Beneath the comedy, however, there was always a question: was this biting humor a mask for something deeper? Those who knew him best say yes. His family has admitted that Rickles' on-stage persona wasn't just an act. The sharpness in his comedy sometimes reflected his inner frustrations. He carried insecurities, fears of failure, and the constant pressure to prove himself in an industry that was unforgiving. Even as his fame skyrocketed, the burden of maintaining his reputation as comedy's king of insults weighed heavily. His family recalls how the stress of being on all the time sometimes followed him home, creating tensions and moments that weren't funny at all. The other side of Rickles' story is one of deep love and personal struggle. He married Barbara Sklar in 1965, and their relationship was considered one of Hollywood's rare long-lasting unions. But behind the happy marriage photos were years filled with challenges, especially after the tragic death of their son, Larry, in infancy. Rickles rarely spoke publicly about this heartbreak, but his family has said it left scars he never truly healed from. He buried himself in his work, using humor as both a shield and a sword. As he aged, health issues became another battle. Rickles dealt with diabetes, infections, and eventually kidney failure, which led to his death in 2017 at the age of 90. But his family has revealed that the decline was harder than fans realized. Watching a man who had spent his life commanding rooms and stages slowly lose his strength was devastating, and it peeled back the curtain on a side of him the public never saw: vulnerable, frail, and human. There were also stories of strained friendships. Rickles may have been beloved by many in the entertainment world, but his biting style wasn't always received well. Some celebrities avoided him, unable to handle his relentless jabs, while others laughed publicly but resented him privately. His family admitted that Don's humor sometimes crossed lines that hurt relationships, leaving him isolated at moments in his later years. Yet, for all the pain, the family also reveals that Rickles was deeply devoted to them. He adored his daughter, Mindy, and cherished being a grandfather. But the picture isn't the perfect Hollywood family portrait fans might imagine. The weight of his career, the grief he carried, and the personality that made him both adored and feared often made life complicated for those closest to him. Years later, as his family finally shares the truth, we see a man who is much more than just a comedian. Don Rickles was a pioneer, but also a husband, a father, and a man who battled demons that jokes couldn't erase. The laughter he gave the world came at a personal cost, and his family's honesty reveals a legacy that's as tragic as it is legendary. Behind the punchlines, Don Rickles' story wasn't always pretty, but it was undeniably real.